like you to take a look at these images. You may notice that in all of these images, animals are pixelated, some slightly, and in others, it's difficult to determine the protagonist. These images were created by Mikami Yoshiyuki for a WWF campaign, where the number of pixels in each photo is equal to the number of specimens per species remaining in the world.
This is an example of a frightening crisis that threatens 1 million animals and plant species around the world, and that affects almost 70% of amphibians, 25% of mammals, and 40% of birds, according to an article by Gaceta UNAM. And something more alarming is that almost 70% of the world diversity of species lives in the 12 mega-diverse countries. So this percentage deeply depends on effective and very accurate conservation plans that must be executed by these countries. Otherwise, a significant part of these species could be lost.
But what is a mega-diverse country? There are countries that have the greatest quantity and diversity of animals and plants. This group is made up of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, Congo, Madagascar, China, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, and Mexico. I'm Diana Valdez Manjarres, I'm Mexican, and I'm proud to know that my country is part of this list, and that 11% of the world's biodiversity inhabits our territory. But, according to an investigation by Alejandro Oliver for the Centro para la Diversidad Biológica, 475 species in Mexico are in danger of extinction, and unfortunately, the 10 most emblematic are part of this list too. Some examples are the Mexican axolotl. It is native to Texcoco, Xochimilco, and Chalco in Mexico City. This organism has been affected by the loss of habitat due to urban growth. Likewise, it is a source of food and popular remedies. So another of its threats is our exploitation. By 2014, there were only 36 axolotls per square kilometer. The scarlet macaw. Indiscriminate logging, illegal hunting, theft of hatchlings, and animal trafficking have put the scarlet macaw in danger of extinction. In addition, macaws have low rates of reproductive success. The monarch butterfly. In 2017, the monarch butterfly population decreased by more than 80% compared to the 1990s, being affected mainly by the loss of habitat, the pesticides used in agriculture, and climate change that affects the migratory routes of the species. But why is this happening? Why are not these and many other animals taken into consideration? Well, this is a case of what Deltor L. Palhus and other authors called a phaloempathic hierarchy, which describes the differential empathy that humans feel toward different species. In a study, 4 animal characteristics, called the Big Four, were tested and drove to different results for each animal. The characteristics were perceived intelligence. Is the sentience or self-awareness and consciousness that an animal has, which is tightly linked to anthropomorphism or the attribution of human characteristics or behaviors to an animal. Size. The argument in this characteristic is that larger animals feel more pain because they have more elaborated nervous systems that make pain reactions more visible. Aesthetic appeal is the physical attractiveness in an animal that enhances empathy for them. And lack of harmfulness. When creatures are potentially harmful to humans, less empathy is awarded. Animals like monkeys, dogs and cats, gorillas, whales, and elephants were among the 20 animals who received the highest empathy results, while animals like cockroaches, sharks, frogs and toads, rats, and bats were among the lowest empathy ratings. And the researchers found that the significant reasons of people's protecting feelings towards animals were reason 1, 2, and 3. While perceiving harmfulness tended to dismiss just a little bit some empathy. An example of these are the cockroaches. For most of us, cockroaches are just sneaky, dirty, and disgusting insects that carry illnesses, which means we think they have a lower aesthetic appeal and perceived intelligence, and a higher harmfulness. And whenever they are stepped on, they don't scream or show visible pain reactions according to us. So they have an inconvenient size too.
Now, I want you to imagine what will happen if all the animals you dislike disappear. Let's take the example of the spiders. 5% of the world's population has arachnophobia. And whether they smash it or spray insecticide on them, the goal is to kill them, right? Well, let me tell you that killing the spiders inside your house, it's an open door to pests.
Spiders, like many other predator insects, control other insects and small vertebrate populations like flies, mosquitoes, and small mice, which are considered pests because of their numerous amount of specimens and because they are an important threat to wildlife and human health.
So here's where I introduce to you the main purpose of my talk. Sharing with you some information that I have learned from all of these years to conserve flora and fauna. And I'm not lying. Unfortunately, my house is part of the urban growth that reach until the top of this hill. Many species live here like lynxes, coyotes, hares, scorpions, snakes, cacti, acacias, among many others. So, I, as a citizen, have the responsibility to coexist with them with respect. So, here are some advices and tips that will help and that are sustainable. If you want to start a garden, an excellent idea is to investigate the native plant and tree species of the zone. This way, you plant producers that will produce the food to the primary consumers, and this way, the food chain will flow.
Don't feed native fauna. This is very dangerous for them since as they increasingly get closer to urban areas searching for food, they end up being run over or eaten by feral animals like dogs and cats.
If you see any animal inside your house that doesn't belong there, like snakes or birds or even frogs, it's a good option to research for institutions that are certified in wildlife management. In Mexico, the Profepa is a very good option because it helps fauna.
If you know that someone like your neighbor or a friend has an illegal species as pet, you can also call Profepa and make an anonymous denunciation. They will go directly to the residence to pick up the animal. If necessary, it will be treated by a specialized vet. And finally, relocate it in the correct habitat.
If you're as sensible as I am, whenever you see a wild animal being chased or being eaten by another wild animal, don't interfere. You know, this is how the food chain works. And as the prey ate before, the predator has to do the same to get the food and the energy it needs.
And finally, the tip I consider the most important is not to feed feral animals, which includes dogs and cats. Every year, just in Mexico, cats kill 3 billion wild animals. So that's why a different way to help animals in street situations has been invented. I'm talking about the T&R method, which means trap, neuter, return. This method helps to reduce and control the population of both cats and dogs in street situations. Otherwise, feeding them just makes them stronger to kill wild animals for sport. Since in case of cats, they don't eat 2 of their 3 hunts per day.
And now that we are aware of this information, it's time to spread it with more people and continue researching on our own to preserve the biodiversity that inhabits not just our area but the whole world. Because that's the only way we can continue waking up listening to birds sing, breathe fresher air, and see how our planet becomes greener every day. Because every little action matters.